Oh, thanks. And that'll take us pretty much to 5:30. So kind of two big, chunks of time with some networking, and then the really meat of the session about culturally responsive and sustaining education. I think that's it for me. Passing it to Colleen.
Sure. Did we do our reminder about our upcoming field trip? Excellent. I really was here listening. So you guys, I get to do the fun part of the presentation. Well, it's all fun part, but I get to start us off. How about that? So we're going to do a few warm up and icebreaker type questions, and we'll have a little opportunity to do some networking with all of you. As I said earlier, it is nice to see familiar faces on the call. So if I can ask you to drop into the chat kind of your responses for our icebreaker questions today, we'll kind of get a waterfall effect going, and folks can see what you have to say. Our first question for you today is, what is one thing you have done in the garden with students this winter? And I'm already thinking, what have I done in the garden with students this winter? I'll give you guys a couple minutes to do that. I'm appreciating the different and varied responses I've seen. Very sweet. All right. While you guys are working on that, I might start posing our second question, because we're going to need time to ponder this one. There's so many good choices. What's your favorite winter vegetable?
Oh, that's a tough one.
Says the vegetarian in the group, right?
Love winter crops.
Right. Gosh, even I am struggling with that. I might get called out for naming a vegetable that's not maybe a winter vegetable.
All answers are welcome here.
I might also get called out for my spelling. All right. And our third and final icebreaker question, but I also want to state that if you guys have any kind of pressing questions that are on your mind right now, go ahead and drop those into the chat. We do have a few minutes after our kind of Q&A here to respond to some of those before we get ready to see our video. So feel free to drop any general networking type questions in the chat. And our final question for you would be, will you start seeds indoors either yourself or with student participation? Do you have a plan for late February or early March? I'm always kicking myself that I need to plant my tomatoes, and then I plant my tomatoes indoors, and then by the time they're ready to go outside, I'm like, I planted them too early again. So my goal is end of February, not anytime sooner.
Nice.
And we don't mind if you elaborate on what you might be starting.
The number of folks we have, I think if people want to unmute and talk to us.
Yeah.
True enough.
Absolutely.
Sharon called it lazy to buy starts. That's not lazy. That's supporting the horticulture industry.
Oh.
Very true.
I need to figure out my whole lesson plan, but I have all of my folders here. I have a ton of folders that have info on different veggies, and there's like a ton of them. And the kids go through and they pick out one or two interesting facts, and then they write it down on a little sheet of paper, and then we laminate that. And those are the plant markers. So that's half the lesson. And then the other half of the group is planting the seeds, and then we'll put them inside. Because of course, everything's going to be outside this year, but then I'll have to bring them in to, and it's like in their little 3rd grade group area where they get to watch their seeds grow. That's
Oh,
at
I love that.
Cascadia.
Oh, that's fun.
In the past, one thing I've done when I worked with the younger kids was to get a class set of seed catalogs, and that was a really good activity. And that was when we could be in the classroom, and it's a really good literacy thing for the classroom before you go out, and you teach them how to, how many days does it take for this to sprout and to harvest, and what temperature, and there are a lot of good things. And I had kids choose seeds. At the present time during the pandemic, we kind of have a suite of plants that are working real well for us, and we're just gonna go with those 5 or 6 things, but the kids will direct seed as usual, the scarlet runner beans and the ozette potatoes. The rabbits have gotten so bad that we have to pre-plant the sunflowers. So, we have a variety of things that we do, but I think the volunteers will mostly do the pre-planting so the kids can plant out the transplants this year.
Nice.
All right, now did we see any actual questions show up from folks in the chat? Anybody else wanted to share about their seed starting experiences or plans for the spring verbally?
How do we add questions to the Jamboard? I'm sorry, I've not used Jamboard before.
Oh, you're welcome to put them in the chat, Jody.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's a great question though. So on the Jamboard on the left-hand column there, let's see, it's 1, 2, 3, 4 icons down. It will say sticky note, and then you click on it. You can choose a different color if you'd like, type your message, and then hit save.
Thank you. That's where I'm like, I have become the old person with tech.
It took me a little bit to figure it out too.
I guess my question was, I don't know if there's anybody here from like that has just collects gardening stuff over the years, and is there any resource where people save their seed packets? Because I saw a great I'm going to go back, like the empty seed packets. I'm going to go. I'm going back to teach distinct starting next week, and I saw a great activity that another distinct teacher did, like in another state, where they had laminated all these empty seed packets and then had the kids stock them as if you would be stocking at a nursery. So it was like a vocational job.
You're in Northeast Seattle, right?
Yes.
There's a Northeast Seattle like seed exchange, garden exchange group that's on Facebook. They're really good about sharing resources like that. And if you asked, I'm sure a ton of people would save their seed packets for you. I can try to find a link to it.
Is it on, you say on Facebook?
Yeah, it's like a Facebook group.
You can look that up. Northeast Seattle.
Let me find the exact name of it. It was started by somebody who volunteered with me at Wedgwood Elementary originally.
Well, I'll save you my seed packets, but I tell you, Jody, I'll probably only have like 6.
Yeah, but I mean, my thought is like, if we get enough, right, we laminate them. And then, because we have a lot of students who like can't match tomatoes with tomatoes because there are 2 different pictures. And wouldn't that be a great skill to be able to say, oh, they all go in the category of tomato, or, I mean, I feel like it's just an easy skill. And since we're going to be doing stuff in the garden anyway, just the more garden things, it's just one more tool in the, one more thing kids can work on. And the more, some kids will like it, some kids won't, but you never know. So I just thought it was a really smart idea of reusing something you already have.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So Jody, you're just looking for empty seed packets, right? You're just ones that have already. Okay, because we have at Beacon Food Forest, we always are, planting seeds. So I can just make sure that those are set aside, and if there's a way of contacting you, I can make sure that they get to you. But we're always, we're always have like seeds to give away, or people are giving us seeds like from the previous year or whatever.
Mhm.
So that would be a great place. And we just put up a seed exchange cabinet at the Food Forest. So
Ooh.
that's probably a good resource for that. So I'll make sure that we'll save some packets.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to drive and pick them up or whatever. I mean, I like going to other gardens and meeting other people. So like driving around to pick things up is not a big deal at
What
all.
part of town are you in?
I'm in Northeast Seattle, but I drive down to the Beacon Hill and Rainier areas for different things. So
Okay,
yeah, not a big deal for me to hop on the highway and drive down.
cool.
Jody, you might also try the Nathan Hale horticulture teacher.
Do you know who that is now?
Yeah, it's Matt Davis.
Okay.
Yeah, so he has a Seattle Schools email. And he was just not transplanting. He was planting his tomato seeds yesterday.
Right, because they use their greenhouse. And I have a lot of my former students that were in the mod intensive program have taken horticulture class. I just didn't know who the current teacher was.
Yeah, so it's Matt Davis, very receptive. And yes, they sound like they're going to do their spring plant sale. So I'm sure there'll be plenty of seed packets coming up.
Okay, thank you.
Also, I'm volunteering at the Ballard Sprouts. That's a neighborhood group who for the Seattle Giving Gardens. So we make like 20,000 so starter plants for all the giving gardens each year. And so Kit is organizing that, and I can ask her to also save the empty packages. So we have tons of empty packages when we do the planting.
Everybody's name.
Yeah, and it starts now 14th, I think mid of February we start planting.
Wonderful.
This is a fantastic, like, wow, I didn't expect all of this. This is great. I mean, yeah, the more I think we can make this, the more we collect, the more we can laminate. And then like our TAs our instructional assistants, when they have downtime at meetings and stuff, they like to laminate so they feel like they're doing something, because a lot of times meetings don't pertain to them. And so like the more kind of job skill, I'm always about pre-vocational jobs, because I want our students to have as much opportunity to not only grow their own food, but think about possible jobs in the field, even if it's whether at a greeter at a nursery or a bagger or something like that.
Yeah, wonderful.
Wonderful. Nice
All right,
to see these
Teresa, do you want to take it away?
Yes, thank you. We just want to be respectful of everyone's time here. So hopefully we'll have a few more minutes for networking at the end. But I will go ahead and share a little bit about what brings us together here today. So just for a little bit of context, we did send out the survey at the beginning of the year to hear from you all what it is that you're wanting out of the School Learning Garden Network in the coming year. And we did hear consistent feedback that working on equity in the garden as well as outdoor education is a priority for many of you here. So equity and improving equity in our systems is a topic that we plan to make a part of many of our meetings in the upcoming year. But for starting us out, we are going to explore the concept of culturally responsive and sustaining education. And so this will be a way for us to share ideas and see how this can be applied to our work with students, with gardens in general. And so the video that we will be sharing and watching today is from an organization. And so we will watch a video of a recording that they actually did, and we'll share the link with you all to watch it concurrently, just because for the Zoom technology, it doesn't work very well to share a screen and a video. But for just to kind of get us set up, so I am sharing these participation norms and expectations that I'm borrowing from a racial equity team group that I am a part of with the school district. And so this is just kind of to keep the space enjoyable and safe for all. We do ask for you to stay present as much as you can with the conversation today. you know, you're invited and welcome to keep your camera on if that's something you're comfortable doing with. However, this is a recorded presentation, so there's absolutely no pressure. We'd like to create space for having multiple truths and remembering, you know, we all come from different backgrounds and have different experiences. We would like to center learning and growth in this space, as well as just to stay curious and stay open. And so let's see with that. So just to start us off, just they do share this graphic in the video, but I think it's really nice graphic and just kind of in getting our brains warmed up for thinking about this. So give me just a moment. Oops, oh, that's too big. All right, can everyone see that there? Okay, great. So this is an iceberg concept of culture, and this is just a graphic I borrowed online. And so thinking about different cultures and, you know, the people around us in our communities, kind of the top of the iceberg are things that maybe we see commonly throughout, you know, our time in school and when we're walking around and see posters and buildings. So one of the kind of surface level cultural aspects that we might be more familiar with are different cultures, music or dance or literature, and language is a big one as well. And so we're inviting you today to kind of work on thinking about what might be below the surface on deeper culture. So some of these things might include body language, or a sense of personal space can be really unique based on cultures. Groups, decision-making habits and patterns is something that can be influenced by culture. So just kind of as this graphic outlines, it's culture can be a lot more than kind of the surface level things that we might experience on a regular basis. And so we invite you, as you're sharing space with students and sharing space in the garden, to try to pull upon some of these like more kind of deep culture concepts and kind of framing your work and framing the space. And this is shared in the Jamboard too. Okay. And then now we will go ahead and share the video link. So we'll be doing this a little differently today, but basically I'm going to share the link for the video in the chat there, and then we've watched it and kind of curated it down. So if everyone can pull it up on a separate screen or a different window, and we can help you with that if you need some help. And then we'll actually start playing the video at the 5-minute marker. So you should be able to just drag the bar and toggle it to where it starts at 5 minutes. And then if you just watch the video until it hits about 28 minutes and 40 seconds, more or less. And then at the end of those 23 minutes, we will come back together in this space and then do our group discussions and our breakout rooms. And that's a chance that we can kind of talk about these different concepts. Do we have any questions for now, or does anyone need help kind of navigating this video?
Can you just type in the chat the start and finish time?
Oh, yes.
Thanks.
And I will have to hop off at 5, but I am watching the video before then. So.
Okay, great. 28, 40. Okay. We're trying something new, so hopefully it works out.
Where do we find the video?
I posted it in the chat. Are you able to view the chat?
I'm bringing up the chat.
Okay.
So I see what looks to be a live link. Do I just click on that?
Yep, you click the live link and then it should, it'll pull up the video. I think it's on the right-hand side of the screen there. You should just be able to hit play, and then I would fast forward about 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Tabisa, you said you'd send, maybe I misheard you, the link to that Iceberg infographic.
Yes.
That would be, I'll be curious to see.
Absolutely.
It's in the Jamboard as well. If you have that link.
I do have it open. Maybe I'm on the first page or the
very last page, like 5 or something.
Oh, on the last page. I forgot the resource page. Got it. Thank you so much.
Okay, if everyone's doing well and has that pulled up, we'll go ahead and for this next segment, we will have a couple group discussion questions that we can think about in small groups. So I think Sharon will set us into breakout rooms. And then we have, let's see, I think we have about 3 questions that we will share in the Jamboards for the groups. And so those can kind of help to kind of guide the discussion, but also just curious to hear how that sat with everyone and how everyone's thinking. So, Sharon?
Yeah, so I have created 2 breakout rooms with 3 people, and then there's going to be a few people that stay with me in the main room. So I will, oh, there's Patty. Welcome back, Patty. So I will go ahead and just transition you. And then I think Tabisa said these different discussion questions should be in the Jamboard for you to use with your group. All right, so.
I didn't see them in Jamboard.
Oh, no? Okay.
I think we need to add them now.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. And the folks staying here should be Patty, Ancha, and Colleen. And Selena, I think I have you in a room.
Yeah, I'm slow. Okay. Woo, there we go.
No rush. All right. Okay. Was everyone able to see the video okay? We know the quality was a little bit blurry for some reason. So yeah, so I don't know, any sort of like first impressions from the video, like about culturally responsive and sustaining education?
I like the last little bit when the teacher said she had to teach about the rock cycle and she didn't know how to make that more applicable. And then she had this, I had the idea, okay, we can look at how Native Americans used rocks as tools or so, but she had then this really present thing with the North Dakota pipeline, which made it even more relevant. So we think about a Native American culture of something in the past, how they lived in the past, how they their lifestyle and what tools they, but to see that they are still here and how they live now and what challenges they have. And so I thought that was great.
I liked when the teacher said, don't stick to the curriculum, because that's not, I also liked hearing from that teacher who said, okay, she thought she was supposed to have the kids sit down and copy what was on the board and give it back to her. That's so old school. I loved hearing it. And she was relatively young actually, but I like it when she ended up saying, no, you don't stick to the curriculum, you do other stuff. So that was good.
Yeah, Anja, I thought that was really, and I hope I'm saying your name correctly. How do you say your name?
Antje. Antje.
Okay, Antje. I also, that part really struck me too about thinking about the rock cycle and how, yeah, like sometimes it can be a little bit, it's maybe not very intuitive, like how to think about culture and how to incorporate families and students into, and their broader communities into learning. And I think what you said is just so very relevant, especially like when we think about Indigenous presence and what you were saying, exactly, like Indigenous people are with us here in the present and will be in the future and are caretakers, and we have lots of lessons to learn from them as well and to honor their sovereignty here in what we call the United States. But I think that was such a unique lesson that she was able to bring it into current day, and that was felt like in the way that she responded, that the students like kept wanting to talk about it and really found it like very inspiring and like very relevant to them, that they could connect to that, to all of those pieces together about geology and rocks and also this current political movement and social justice and environmental justice pieces together. So that to me was like really inspiring in the sense that like, and also for me to hear from teachers that like some experienced teachers, this is new concept for them as well, and how to think about thinking about their own lessons in a different way, and that they are still, you know, even though it's maybe a little bit scary to try something new, that some really interesting things can come out of it. So.
Yeah,
There-
I agree.
There was a
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
Sorry, Patty, you go ahead.
There was a presentation in the Seattle Learning Garden Network maybe 5 years ago by a teacher in South Seattle. I'm sorry, I cannot remember the name of the school. We went to look at her garden, and she had the kids they had done a video presentation with each kid taking a different part. I don't know if you remember that.
Was that at MLK with the wetland? Was it a vegetable garden or the wetland installation?
It was not MLK. Where is MLK school?
It is South End. I mean, it's maybe more central south, not super.
Oh,
south.
it was farther south. It was farther.
Okay.
It wasn't down by the Rainier Beach wetlands. I'm sorry, I don't remember where it was. I don't remember, but it was clear from the participation of the students and the kind of I would say the reverberating echoes throughout their families and the community, that she had created a web of interest involving the garden. And so while she didn't speak specifically about doing culturally relevant, sustainable education, or whatever term this lady in the video used, she had done it. You know, she had reached the kids on their levels, and some of the kids gave presentations while we were there, and they were, you know, some of them were very, very articulate, and some of them were not, but they were very enthusiastic. So it didn't, you know, it sort of their educational level, who they were, didn't matter. It was, you know, she had reached the core of them, and I really liked that. So anyway, I'm just connecting that to what I just heard.
That's great. It's always great to have like local examples. And I love that you remember that from like 4 or 5 years ago. I was like racking my brain. I was like trying to think which place that would be.
I don't keep, I'm not a garden note keeper. I don't do that, but the feeling is there, you know. It was great. It was really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, Sharon will have that knowledge. I won't anymore.
I was thinking I should really actually like document somewhere. You may have it in a file somewhere, Colleen, that maybe Gretchen left you, but we should really just document everything where we've been over the past few years. I think Sean might have kept that list. I'm not sure.
Right. I'm going through those files as we speak practically. So yeah, some of them I'm saving, some of them I'm not.
Makes sense. Well, anyway, that was a little bit of a side note, but we do have some interesting questions that I thought we could maybe just explore a little bit. But yeah, I guess maybe in our own situation, you know, our own school gardens, or if we're working with youth in whatever capacity or with communities. One of the questions Tabisa has is, what has been a success and a challenge of incorporating cultural responsiveness in your work or your garden or your teaching? Or what has been a success and a challenge? Both of those places.
Does she mean something that is both a success and a challenge at the same time, or does she want an example of a success and another example of a challenge? Because sometimes to think of something that's both is a little bit difficult.
No, either or.
Okay, I would say one thing that happens for me in the garden is just listening to individual kids about their responses, and the responses come from a variety of who they of the elements that make them up. So you know, one kid said, you know, oh, my grandmother grew squashes in Mexico. Well, that leads to a conversation, and you know, how did your grandmother grow it, and what kind of squash do you like? And let me bring in some squash, cooked squash, and we'll eat it, or let's try to grow some squash. So it's like really taking students' responses to heart when they come up in the garden, I think is a success. And I'm trying to think, there's so many obstacles, I don't know what to say. No, I mean, there's a lot of successes too, but I'm going to think about the obstacles while somebody else is responding, I think.
Patty, I like your response because I think it really kind of doubles down on that graphic with the iceberg about kind of going below the surface and digging and delving deeper into that kid's response.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I think an obstacle, I work mostly with autistic kids and some kids who have some physical limitations. And I remember a few years ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, we had a girl who was wheelchair bound, and our garden is not built for people in wheelchairs. So, I mean, we've been teaching for a while, so we figured out how to accommodate, and it worked out fine, but it was a challenge. I mean, there were some things she could not do and participate in, but in the gardening, what I like is there's so many things that you can do, no matter your abilities, that we figured ways that we had her raking leaves and doing all the planting, and we made a little tray so she could, plant the stuff, and there was a lot of things she could do. And so we didn't say, well, you can't do this, so we'll have you do that. No, we didn't do that. We just presented activities that she could do, kind of planned ahead. So, but it wasn't, those were obstacles. So I don't know what else to say about that.
Yeah, no, for sure. Those are very, very real.
And I would say working with the autistic kids, that's an obstacle because they don't really follow directions in a typical straightforward way. So we have to sort of lead them into activities in another way. Oh, and I learned something from was it this garden network? Oh, I know. I think it was the workshop I attended online through the Seattle Children's Garden. And they talked about basically storyboards for autistic kids that I didn't really know about before. So,
Oh, that's cool. I was just going to ask you, like, how have you adapted your teaching? Like, how have you been responsive to working with autistic kids? Because it sounds like you have learned some new strategies to help them be successful or just to be a part of the garden, right?
Well, what I find is, as a volunteer, the teachers are so appreciative. I could do just about anything and they would like it, because it gets them out of the classroom into the fresh air, having their kids do something different, having them maneuver things physically that they don't get to maneuver in the classroom. But basically, I'll have ideas and I'll ask the teachers or the TAs, how do we accommodate these kids to do this activity? And those teachers are so good. They're so good. They know how to do it. If I have an idea, they teach me how we're gonna do this activity. So I can always be assured of that. And Anja, where do you garden, did you say, with kids? Where?
I did a little bit, but not in the moment with the World School.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I worked a lot teaching kids as a sun guide, Seattle Urban Nature Guide, when people brought with the bus kids to Discovery Park or other parks, and then they start also to teach closer to schools because some schools couldn't afford a bus.
Yeah.
So we went to Louis Warren and other schools where we can walk to. So I did not so much gardening yet. I do gardening otherwise. I was in the pea patch community a long time, and I helped also at Beacon Hill Food Forest and ballot sprouts, where we grow a lot of, but that's only like three months of the year. But I wanna do more gardening with children. So
Yeah.
that's more my future. And here I live very close to the World School, but they are little older children, middle school and high school children.
And where is the World School? Is that a Seattle public school or is that a private school?
This is a public school for refugee and immigrant kids who haven't
Okay.
enough English to go to regular schools or prepare to go then to transfer to regular public school. And
Where is it?
It's on Capitol Hill, the former TT Minor building,
Oh,
Union
okay.
and 80. Just
Okay.
close to the towers or whatever you call them, radio towers. So it's really in my neighborhood, and they had a big school garden and then they remodeled the building and they divided it, and I don't see so much activity there, but I heard, I once saw a person and she said she's a nurse. So I don't know how much the teacher are really involved to use that school garden. So that's my goal, to be more helpful there.
Well, Tabitha and I would love to connect with you on that. We are aware that there is a small garden at Seattle World School, and it is definitely underutilized. I think it's been really challenging during the pandemic to, of course, recruit people and bring people together to work in a garden. But we definitely have a soft spot for that school. And yeah, it does serve non-English speakers until they are familiar enough with the English language to attend a school that might be in their
And
neighborhood.
and as a sun guide or volunteer naturalist, for years we had the in the summer school with this population. So once a week we did a field trip to a wetland or to the beaches and other things. So that was more science and yeah, science oriented and natural history oriented. But I always thought, yeah, the garden is then another way for these kids to connect with nature.
Sharon and Colleen, you all have gardened with kids. What have been your successes and obstacles in working with kids?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. You know, I think it's really interesting. There was a teacher in one of the videos there that was talking about, you know, one of her biggest fears was allowing kids to drive the lessons, because it does, you know, as a teacher, you're used to, like, you have goals and objectives that you want to be doing and you want to accomplish, and you know your own way of doing it and how to be successful in the time that you have. And when there are variables in there, like, you don't know how that's going to go. And so I think that there, for me, I know that's always a point of, okay, how much do I feel comfortable potentially, like, taking this out of the realm of what I know is going to happen, but with the knowledge that it could be really, really amazing, or we could discover something that maybe I had no idea was going to come out of this lesson or at this particular season. And so I think part of that is, like, you know, as an educator, however you want to call yourself, informal educator, teacher, guide, whatever, that sort of, I don't know, it's almost like having humility around, like, okay, I may mess up, or this could go a way that could also be bad, but also, like, allowing children to have a voice and youth to have a voice around that connection. I'm thinking about these kids who have recently immigrated and English is a second, third, fourth language, whatever it is, and, like, how powerful I have seen the connection between food, obviously, right? Like, and their own experiences in their home country of growing food, cooking food. And that can be so powerful for folks to communicate in different ways about too. But it's a risk, right? Like, it's a chance. And so I think for me, that's something that I'm constantly trying to, like, be more comfortable with, basically.
Yeah, Patty, it's been a long time since I worked with kids in a garden.
No. Oh.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know that in the time that I worked with younger children in gardens that cultural responsiveness was really, unfortunately, a thing, despite coming from a school environment that had lots of children from other cultures. And so, yeah, I don't know that it was really something that we thought of.
Yeah.
And, you know, that wasn't really all that long ago.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Let's see, did we have another question we were going to address with us? Gosh, what do we have here?
I muted myself. Yeah, some other questions. If you're in there, Colleen, go ahead. I have to go.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, how do we even explain this? So where is one area of learning in which cultural responsiveness can be practiced that may not traditionally or obviously be related? So the example given is Eurocentric plant nomenclature versus indigenous names and plant relationships.
Or I think, you know, the other example about rocks. I think
Yes.
that's the other way of thinking about it. Like,
Or
Yeah, I
like
think-
the teacher in the video gave the example of math where the guy says, I teach math. I don't do this other stuff. So, which is probably not completely atypical, honestly.
Right.
Unfortunately. So.
Yeah, I feel like that rock lesson really hit home with for those kids because for some reason I assumed that that was middle to high school age students. And so, you know, given how in tune children are with what's going on out there in the greater world with their devices, I feel like they were experiencing that firsthand. And so just having their school lessons about rocks tie into this particular place and time really sent the message home.
You know, sometimes in some of the SLGN meetings, I know there have been some gatherings or focuses on tying gardening to state learning objectives, and my eyelids just kind of go blank. I don't want to do that, because when you go in the garden, it's all about the air and the organisms and the sunshine. And now if I were a science teacher and the garden were my laboratory, that would be different. But you know, I don't do that. I do gardening. And so it's much nicer not to have to deal with the learning objectives. Although of course you have goals, but if they're tied so specifically to, you know, science learning objective 3.2.1, you know, it somehow doesn't make sense for gardening to me. It doesn't make sense.
yeah, I think that's really interesting. I mean, I totally know what you're talking about, Patty. I absolutely know what you're talking about. I think the thing is that like the things that we do in the garden, we know are learning. They actually, it's almost like you could do a lesson and go back behind and say, oh, right, we were talking about measurement, or we were talking about patterns, or we were talking about collecting data, or we were thinking about poetry. Like I think there are ways that you do make those connections, whether we like to name them or not.
Yeah, don't like
And I mean, that's sometimes like the catch, right, with garden education, is that there's sometimes feels a need that that we can prove that those things are possible in the garden. I think, Patty, you have like carved out, I think, a very unique space at Jams that is like really, really amazing. And other places probably, I don't know, may feel pressure from other, like needs from administrators or different things to provide those standards.
Yeah.
But they're there. I mean, and I agree, that is kind of, it can be like that, but it's like happening all the time. You know what I mean?
No, I think one thing I like about gardening is it absolutely is applicable to every subject matter a kid should study. You know, I'm not doing that. I'm not there, but I love that about it. And you know, when I taught in that building, high school English, we were reading environmental readings and growing an organic garden. So it really was tied to the curriculum. But just gardening on its own is really valuable for kids, I think. So
Yeah. Colleen, did you just send a message to the breakout groups?
That was
Okay,
for
good.
me. Yeah,
Perfect.
to be said that outreached, and she's like, I don't see the big room. Are you guys calling us back?
Oh, should I close them? Whoops, I didn't know how to do that. That's
Well, I mean, we might bring them back. It sounds like maybe their conversations have gotten a little quiet, so we can bring
okay.
everybody back.
60 seconds. People can come back in. Well, this has been really lovely chatting with all of you. I think this video was really interesting to think about and how we teach in gardening, and I'm constantly learning about this stuff. I feel like I learn more about the more I learn about other folks, the more I learn about myself too. And like those kinds of connections make everything more powerful. So it's really cool to hear what everyone is doing.
Ansha, it was nice to meet you. I hope to visit you in your garden sometime. Maybe we can have.
Yeah, I just remembered also when my son, I have two grown-up sons, when they were small, we took classes at the children's garden at Tilth, and that was so fun.
Yay. Up in Wallingford?
Yeah, I did the Shepherd Center, and they made sun tea and all kinds of things, so yeah.
Yeah, they still do that. We still make tea in the garden, so. Welcome back, everyone. I think that's everybody, yes?
Yeah, I think so.
Well, I think we have about 5 minutes left. I don't remember if I am closing this out or if somebody else is. But let's see. Anything folks wanted to quickly share from their conversations with the larger group?
I like the iceberg visual. I've never seen that before, and that was a really good way to think about culture. I've certainly thought of those things, but I didn't see it visualized so well before.
One of the things that I'd like to see added on the bottom of that iceberg is there's something that says sense of past and future, but I also think there should be something about our sense of how we use time, because different cultures, like I was saying in my group, in Western culture, you know, our times are defined very very concretely. You know, 3:30 you're supposed to be here, you know, March 28th this needs to be done, that kind of thing. And you know, think about it, we didn't have clocks for most of the time that we've been humans, and like, so this clock thing where we have to adhere to the clock is really, you know, and I think if we really start to think about that, why we are, you know, adhering to this abstract, because it's just made up, right? I mean, 3:30 is just something that's for our convenience. I mean, I know it follows, you know, the planets and everything, but we have lost the fact that it does follow the planets, and so I think it's just an important thing to like note that, you know, different cultures have different sense of time. Like, you know, they will spend more time trying to get the group together than saying the group needs to be here at this time, you know. So that's just a little observation.
It makes me think, Tony, about seasons and how different cultures also think very differently about seasons, and the way that in their own practices agriculturally, but also for traditions or related to religion, or even like thinking like wet season, dry season. Like for some folks it is that way, not necessarily 4 seasons like we may experience in the northern hemisphere. But that's a really interesting point. Well, these are all really, I'm just noticing time. We have, speaking of time, to the minute. But we do know folks want to eat dinner and whatnot. But I really thank everyone for just sharing their thoughts and exploring, for some folks, what may be kind of a newer sort of teaching philosophy, but something that we believe is worthy of exploring further with the folks we work with in the garden, no matter how old they are. And so, as Tabisa mentioned, equity and different components of that, we're going to be making sure to address that in each of our meetings, just in different ways. And so if there are other topics that you want to dive in further, or if this is something to explore in a different way, just let us know. I also wanted to mention that Selena mentioned earlier on March 12th, there's going to be a special sort of like field trip that we've sent out to Islandwood that will be from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. I'm going to put the RSVP Eventbrite link in there if you want to check it out, because we do have a limited amount of seating for the van that will leave from Seattle, go on the ferry, and then return. But other folks can drive themselves or walk on ferry too. So
Sharon,
yes.
I did how do you say, RSVP for that field trip, but where do they meet when you said they start? I had the impression you go on the ferry but just by yourself and meet the van in Bainbridge Island side.
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna catch that. You got me. Yes, I will be driving a van. It says Islandwood on it. It has big, like it has a slug on it. You will see it. And I will meet you as you get off of the ferry in the like little parking lot area. So.
And which, what time is that? I thought 9 o'clock or something much more early.
If you are taking the 9:35 ferry, then I would pick you up around 10:15.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah. And I also just added this in that Eventbrite announcement or RSVP thing that our campus actually is having what we call afternoon on the trails that day, which is just open trails day. And so because our actual like time together will not include a full tour of campus or anything, if you've never been there, I would recommend like signing up for afternoon on the trails and then just like staying and walking around a little bit more, because it's a beautiful place. You might see owls. All right. And then I could always, I mean, if people stick around, I can always do another run to the ferry too.
That sounds like fun.
I'm excited.
Yeah. All right. Well, we hope to see you all there. And I would encourage everyone to peek at the Jamboard. I've just been combing through it. It's interesting to see the other conversations. Watch the video, to the full length if you feel like it. And thank you all so much for coming today and participating and joining us to kick off this new year with the Learning Garden Network. So we hope to see you soon.
Thanks everyone.